Let's play. Spot the shadow. You see it facing the wall. We put a spotlight at your back, and we will pass objects, animals, and people between you and the light. You only have to guess what it is only by the shadow, without looking behind. Ready? Let's start.
That looks like a tomato.
No, it's an apple.
Well, it's a tangerine actually. And this?
That's the cat.
No, that's Dad carrying the cat.
No, that's the cat running away from Dad.
Listen carefully. The shadow looks like something, but it isn't reality. The shadow gives you an idea, but it doesn't show you the whole picture. The shadow points to something, but it doesn't complete it. It makes sense only when you finally turn around to see the real thing appears, and that exactly is what the Bible calls type and antitype. A type is like a shadow, something pointing to a greater thing. The antitype is the reality produced by the shadow. Sabbath School presents the series Lessons of Faith from Joshua. Lesson 10, The True Joshua. The terms type and antitype are not strange little words that theologians invented to sound deep and charge more in seminaries. No, they have real foundation in the Bible. They come from the Greek typos, which translates as model or figure, and antitypos, which is the counterpart of that figure. Today, we will see that Joshua is a type of Jesus. Why? Because Joshua, his leadership, and the conquest of Canaan were only the shadow pointing to the true Joshua, Christ, and to a far greater reality. That's why this week's question is, to what greater realities do Joshua and the conquest of the promised land point? First, the Bible foundation. Listen carefully. Spot the shadow is a game, but the Bible isn't. There are people who see types and antitypes in the Bible that find their existence only in their imagination, as if it were a game.
Like saying that Samson is a type of Christ.
Or that Nebuchadnezzar is a type of the devil.
Right. Samson brought the columns of Dagon's temple down and died there with the Philistines. It was indeed a sacrifice, but the Bible never presents it as a type of the sacrifice of Christ. Nebuchadnezzar invaded Jerusalem and destroyed it, but the Bible presents him as a type of the devil. In fact, Nebuchadnezzar will be converted later. Listen carefully. You can't make up things as you please when it comes to types and antitypes. None of us can say, this sounds lovely, so I will turn it into a Bible type. It doesn't work that way. How does it work? The Old Testament foretells that something or someone is the shadow of something greater, and then the New Testament confirms it. Let's just look at the example of David. The Old Testament says, I will raise to David a branch of righteousness. A king shall reign and prosper and execute judgments and righteousness in the earth. When Jeremiah wrote that, David was already dead. He was pointing to the antitype. Then in the New Testament, Jesus himself confirmed it. I am the root and the offspring of David. Do you notice? Typology isn't based on human creativity, but on divine revelation. The Bible itself establishes the principles, and one of them is that antitypes unfold in three powerful phases. First, they are fulfilled in Jesus' life, Christological fulfillment. Then, they extend to the church, the ecclesiological fulfillment. And finally, they are brought to the end times, the eschatological fulfillment. It is like watching the same story told on three different screens: Jesus, the church, and eternity. For instance, Jesus spoke of the temple referring to his own body. Paul says that the church is the temple of the Holy Spirit. And John, in Revelation, sees that in the New Jerusalem there was no temple because God himself is the temple. Do you see? Jesus is an antitype of the sanctuary. The church, both individually and corporately, is an antitype of the sanctuary, and God and his dwelling are an antitype of the sanctuary. This being said, is there biblical foundation to affirm that Joshua is a type of Christ? Second, the true Joshua. Do you know Joshua's name in Hebrew?
Yehoshua.
And what about Jesus in Hebrew?
Yeshua.
And why do they look so much alike?
Because they have the same root.
Exactly. In fact, they practically mean the same thing. Jehovah save. What was Joshua's mission? To lead the people to the promised land. What is Jesus' mission? To lead us to the new earth. Joshua began the conquest after 40 years in the wilderness. Jesus began his ministry after 40 days in the wilderness. Joshua crossed through the waters of the Jordan. Jesus was baptized in the waters of the Jordan. Joshua brought down walls. Jesus brought down the wall that separated us from God. Joshua fought against armies. Jesus defeated the devil and his armies. Joshua divided land. Jesus distributes grace. Joshua conquered cities. Jesus conquered the cross. Joshua gave a partial rest in Canaan after years of conquest. Jesus gives eternal rest in heavenly Canaan after centuries of spiritual warfare. Paul says it plainly in the book of Hebrews, "For if Joshua had given them rest, then he would not afterward have spoken of another day." Do you notice? Joshua's rest was a shadow. Christ's rest is the reality. Joshua led the people to a land that was eventually invaded, lost, and destroyed. Jesus leads us to an eternal homeland where there will be no more death, nor tears, nor sorrow, nor pain. Listen carefully. Seeing Joshua as a type of Christ isn't the fruit of human creativity. In Deuteronomy 18:18, God said to Moses, "I will raise up for them a prophet like you from among their brethren, and will put my words in his mouth, and he shall speak to them all that I command him." A quick look at the text might suggest that this prophecy was fulfilled in Joshua, since he was Moses' successor. And Joshua sure did fulfill partly the prophecy of a prophet like Moses, but this fulfillment was partial, since it couldn't be completed with Joshua. Only the Messiah could fulfill it completely. Why? Because only Jesus knew the Father intimately and revealed God faithfully, who indeed put his words in Jesus' mouth. That's why both Moses and Joshua were pointing to the same place, the coming Messiah. Jesus is the true and ultimate prophet, deliverer, and conqueror. He is the greater Joshua. He is the true Joshua. And third, the true Canaan. If Joshua is a type of Christ, then the promised land he conquered could only be a type of something much greater than a piece of land in the Middle East.
So Canaan was the model. The real city comes after.
Like when you buy a house and they show you first its miniature model.
Exactly. The earthly Canaan was like that. A model, a shadow, a trailer. It wasn't the complete picture. Think about it. That land was beautiful, yes, but it was invaded by enemies, corrupted by idolatry, devastated by wars, and lost through exile. If that was the ultimate goal, then God would have given us a quite fragile goal, but He never promised fragility. He promised an eternal inheritance, a kingdom that cannot be shaken. Abraham understood this. He lived in the promised land as a stranger, as someone passing by, waiting for the city which has foundations, whose builder and maker is God. Do you notice? Canaan was pointing to something greater than milk and honey. It was pointing to a place where there will be no more room for death, where there will be no more tears, nor invasions, nor captives. A Hebrew says, "But now they desire a better, that is, a heavenly country." If you look for a place called Canaan on a world map, it doesn't exist. It had disappeared thousands of years ago. Why? Because the Canaan that matters isn't on the earth. It's in the heart of God's plan. In eternal Canaan isn't found on a grid. It is found by faith. It is not entered with a passport. It is entered with Christ. So don't look for your place on a map. Look for your place in the kingdom. Because the true Canaan isn't a territory. It's an eternal destiny prepared by the true Joshua, Jesus Christ. If Israel trusted in an imperfect leader like Joshua and obtained the inheritance, how shouldn't we trust in our perfect leader, Jesus Christ? He will give us the true inheritance. Set your mind on things above, not on things on the earth. That is heaven's compass. That is the way to heavenly Canaan. Do you want to support our ministry so we can keep filling the internet with content that truly matters? Content that educates the whole family around the message of Christ. Scan the QR code or visit the link in the video description and support us. Remember, together we can grow more.